Attention passionate Washington Commanders fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the NFC East and it could change the game. We're talking about a direct impact on Washington Commanders' path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Washington Commanders fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with YOUR, FRINDS and Washington, Commanders FANS. Let's get to the news now, folks. If you've been paying attention to the NFC East, you know that this division has always been a battleground, a place where every team is fighting tooth and nail for supremacy. But right now, there's a lot of buzz around the Washington Commanders, and not just because of their recent draft picks or their offseason moves. No, what's really stirring the pot is what could happen in the wide receiver core, especially with the news that is starting to circulate about a potential blockbuster trade involving DJ Moore. That's right. DJ Moore, the dynamic receiver from the Chicago Bears, might soon find himself in the burgundy and gold. And let me tell you, if this deal goes through, it could be a game changer for the Commanders. Let's rewind a little and understand the context. The Commanders, as we all know, have been trying to build a more explosive offense around their young quarterback, Jayden Daniels. Last season was a promising start for Daniels, who showed flashes of brilliance and proved he can be a franchise quarterback if given the right weapons. But one of the biggest issues the team has faced lately is the uncertainty at wide receiver. Terry McLaurin, the undeniable WR1, has been a cornerstone of the offense, a player who's been loyal, dependable, and a true leader on and off the field. However, he's now entering the final year of his contract, and despite efforts to negotiate a new deal, the two sides haven't reached an agreement yet. Now, here's where things get complicated. McLaurin has been holding out, and there's a real risk that he might miss some games or even sit out altogether if the situation drags on. That puts the Commanders in a tricky spot because, as talented as Noah Brown and Deebo Samuel are, they're not quite at the level needed to carry a playoff-caliber team on their own. So, the front office has to think strategically about how to stay competitive and keep the offense explosive. And that's where a potential trade for DJ Moore comes into play. You see, the Chicago Bears, who drafted Moore in 2018, are now in a bit of a tricky situation. Despite giving Moore a contract extension, their recent draft strategy suggests they might be open to moving him. The Bears have invested heavily in young receiving talent, adding Colston Loveland with the 10th overall pick and Luther Burden at 41. Remember, just last year, they drafted Rome Odun's 9th overall. So it's fair to say that the Bears' receiver room is now crowded and perhaps no longer in need of more, especially given their recent draft investments. And let's be honest, Chicago's recent moves indicate they're trying to rebuild and retool their offense around their young quarterback, Justin Fields, who showed flashes of brilliance last season, but needs more reliable weapons. Moore, with his exceptional route running, hands, and big play ability, could fit perfectly into the Commanders' system. But why would the Bears trade him? Well, they have a couple of reasons. For starters, they're in a rebuilding phase and might see Moore as a valuable asset to flip for future picks. Plus, with their draft investments, they might not see Moore as a long-term fit anymore. And here's the interesting part. The trade rumors suggest that the Bears could be willing to part with Moore in exchange for a second-round pick in 2027 and a sixth-round pick in 2026. Now, the Commanders don't have a second-rounder until 2027, but they do have a first-round pick in 2026, which complicates things a bit. However, the sixth-rounder could serve as a sweetener, a small but valuable addition to make the deal work. The reality is, the Commanders might be willing to pay that price, especially considering their current receiver situation and the potential impact Moore could have on their offense. Let's pause here for a moment. Pause here just for a second. If you want the YOUTUBE algorithm to keep recommending the latest Washington Commanders news to you, it's super important that you leave a like on this video. Go ahead, it's quick and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Now let us continue with the big reveal. Because here's where things get even more interesting. The main reason this trade makes so much sense isn't just about filling a roster spot, it's about strategically positioning the team for a deep playoff run, maybe even a Super Bowl appearance. McLaurin's contract situation is critical. He is entering the last year of his deal, and he's made it clear he wants to get paid. That's normal for a star receiver, but if negotiations stall or if he decides to hold out, the Commanders could be left scrambling for a reliable WR1. Trading for DJ Moore would give them a proven, high-caliber receiver who is under contract until at least 2028, with his first-out clause only coming in 2028. That provides stability and a true number one option for Daniels, who needs a reliable target to elevate his game. Moore's skill set, speed, route agility, and big play ability could perfectly complement what McLaurin brings to the table. Having both on the field would give the Commanders one of the most dangerous wide receiver tandems in the league, capable of stretching defenses vertically and creating mismatches all over the field. And let's not forget, adding Moore might not just be about replacing McLaurin. No, it's about elevating the entire offense. With Moore, the Commanders can run more diverse route concepts, open up the middle of the field, and give Daniels more options to make plays. Moore's ability to gain yards after the catch would take some pressure off the running game and help balance the offense. Plus, his presence would help alleviate the pressure on Samuel, who last year was used more as a gadget player but has the potential to be a consistent threat if used properly. So, what does this mean for the team's Super Bowl aspirations? Well, right now, the odds aren't bad. FanDuel has the Commanders at -130 to make the playoffs, which is pretty solid. And their Super Bowl odds are at +2100, ranking them as the seventh favorite in the league. That's behind heavyweights like the Chiefs, Eagles, and Bills, but it's not out of reach. Adding Moore would give the Commanders a real shot at jumping ahead of teams like the Rams and Lions, who are currently favored to be better than them. With a young, talented roster led by Daniels, if they can make a few more strategic moves, like upgrading the offensive line and bolstering their defense, they could be serious contenders. Of course, nothing is final yet. These trade talks are still in the rumor stage, and the Bears haven't officially handed down any offers. But the signs point to a real possibility, and if the deal goes through, it's going to send shockwaves through the NFC East and the entire league. The Commanders would be making a statement that they're all in on winning now, not just building for the future. It's a bold move, but one that could define the franchise's trajectory for years to come. Now, let's talk about some of the other implications. If Moore arrives, it could influence how the Commanders approach their draft and free agency in the coming months. They might prioritize adding more offensive line help or perhaps bolstering their pass rush to support a more aggressive, high-scoring style of play. The NFC East is already one of the toughest divisions, with the Eagles and Cowboys boasting formidable defenses, so the Commanders need to be aggressive both offensively and defensively to stay competitive. And what about McLaurin? Well, that's another story. If the trade happens, it could mean that the Commanders are preparing to move on from their star receiver, or at least create some leverage in negotiations. Or perhaps they're just hedging their bets, making sure they're still competitive even if McLaurin holds out, or if his contract situation becomes too complicated. It's a delicate dance, but one that could pay off big if executed correctly. Looking ahead, the team's coaching staff, led by head coach Ron Rivera, will have a big role in integrating Moore into the offense. The chemistry between the quarterback and receiver will be crucial. Daniels has shown promise, but adding a player like Moore could take him to the next level. The coaching staff will need to create schemes that maximize Moore's strengths, routes that utilize his speed and ability to find openings deep down the field. It will also be interesting to see how the locker room reacts to such a high-profile acquisition. The Commanders have a talented core of players, including young stars like Jamin Davis and Chase Young, who are eager to make their mark. Bringing in someone of Moore's caliber could boost morale and create a competitive atmosphere that pushes everyone to perform at their best. Of course, we can't ignore the broader NFL landscape. The NFC is packed with talented teams, and the Commanders will need to stay healthy and cohesive to make a real playoff push. The addition of Moore could be the spark that ignites their offense, but they'll also need improvements on defense, especially in pass rush and secondary play. The NFC East, in particular, remains one of the most competitive divisions in football, with the Eagles reigning champions and the Cowboys always lurking as serious contenders. The Giants, with their recent upgrades, are also in the mix. So the Commanders are in a position where a smart move like acquiring more could be the difference between falling short again or making a deep postseason run. Now, as we look at this potential trade scenario, it's important to remember that NFL trades are complex and often take time to materialize. The teams will weigh their options, negotiate the terms, and consider their long-term strategies. But what's clear is that both sides see some value here. The Bears get a couple of draft picks that can help them rebuild, while the Commanders get a proven, reliable receiver who can immediately impact their offense. It's a classic win-win if it happens. And as fans, we should be excited about the possibilities. A team that's proactive, willing to make bold moves, and focused on winning now is always fun to watch. The Commanders have been building a solid foundation, but with a move like this, they could elevate themselves into serious contenders. The NFC East is changing, and the Commanders want to be at the forefront of that shift. So keep your eyes peeled because if this trade happens, it's going to be one of the biggest stories of the NFL offseason. And now, Washington Commanders fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Do you think a DJ Moore trade makes sense? Would you be happy to see him don the burgundy and gold? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the team. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, rumors, and analysis on everything happening in Washington and around the NFL. Stay tuned, because the best is yet to come, and this team might just be on the verge of something special.